First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. And that is the instructions that in the form of wisdom that Solomon is imparting here. So as he says, if you keep his commandments, if you keep the instructions of wisdom, they're going to add on to you length of days, which is long life and peace. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. See, so it's kind of like wearing mercy and truth, which are good traits, right? Godly traits about you. And the truth is like faithfulness. Wear them like a chain on your neck, or write them upon the table of thine heart. And actually, let's look at that word bind. To bind together, to confine, to tie, to bind. And then let's actually read this in the NLT. Yeah, tie them around your neck as a reminder, so that, it's metaphorical speak or poetic speak, but it's to say, always keep mercy and truth with you. Write them upon the table of thine heart. Now, in the ancient world, a table was used, it's like a clay tablet that you would be able to inscribe in. And so it's kind of like today you have, a notebook, piece of paper, something like that. And your heart, meaning your mind. So what he's saying is constantly keep these in your mind at the forefront. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Because the Most High loves a merciful and truthful individual, right, that follows after him. And when you exhibit these traits, your actions that you show forth are desirable both to God and man. Trust in the Lord Yahweh with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. Because there are times when you're in a certain situation, and there may be an idea that comes to mind, and you think that's good, but it's actually not. And if you know what the scriptures say, you pray to the Lord, and by direction of what the Lord has showed you, that this is what you have to do, even though it may not seem likely to work, you still have to just trust in the Lord, because sometimes remember that he sees farther than you. He's the one controlling how things turn out and things play out. And sometimes the Lord might put you in a position where your idea, your thought, your understanding seems more plausible, and more realistic than what faith is telling you to do. But the Lord might set up that situation to look like that, but in actuality, not be like that. So you always want to trust in the Spirit of the Lord with all your heart. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Right? In your words, in your actions, in your prayers, in everything you do, acknowledge the Lord. And he's going to direct your paths, meaning the things you do, where you end up, your fate, all of those things, the Lord will guide onto one that is beneficial for you. It tells you that in the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, right? I believe it's the 8th chapter, or the 1st chapter. But it mentions all things work, maybe it's 1 and 28, all things work together for good, or to the good for them that love the Most High. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord Yahweh and depart from evil, because that leads to pride, right? When you start seeing yourself as, like you're wise in your own eyes, in your own conceits, you know what to do. You know everything. You're going to miss something. You're going to overlook something because of your pride. And that's going to work against you. Okay? So fear the Lord Yahweh, because that is the beginning of wisdom, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. And the navel here is really like your body, but when you look at the navel, it's more like the core of your body, your center, where your belly button is. But it's just a figure of speech here, meaning that as a whole, right? It's a healthy thing. If you if you trust in the Lord and fear in the Lord and depart from evil, rather than being wise in your own eyes, and marrow to thy bones, right, which is like strength. And it says here, it's actually kind of curious to see. Purpose. So it says bone marrow is a vital, spongy tissue inside bones, responsible for producing approximately 500 billion blood cells daily, including red blood cells, which are very important for oxygen transport, white blood cells for immune defense, and platelets for clotting, which this is why you don't bleed out when you have like a cut, because your blood clots to prevent that gushing forth of water, and then of blood for you to bleed out. It acts as the body's primary factory for hematopoiesis, blood formation, and serves as a repository for stem cells. So you can see that marrow is very crucial and important for proper functioning of your body. So here, when you where is it at? Yeah, when you fear the Lord, right, and you depart from evil, the benefits of that are very important, like marrow is to your bones or to your body. Honor the Lord Yahweh with thy substance and with the first fruits of thine increase. And that is even in the law, right, about bringing these as an offering to the Lord, because in return he'll give you even greater. Okay, but there is the portion that belongs to the Lord, and you are to honor the Lord with that. And these are the first fruits of your crops, of your increase during the harvest, those first ones. And is likened also unto a tithe of your increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. So your barns or your storehouses are gonna be filled with an abundance, because it's like addition by subtraction in a sense. You lose by giving the first fruits onto the Lord, but in return you gain in abundance because you have a very great harvest. And now you may have lost what, 10%, but you may have gained an additional 100 or 200% increase over your harvest. Okay, so when you give to the Lord, you get back. And thy presses, and just talking about your wine press, and this is what a wine press looks like. Right, something like this or something like that, or even something like this. And what would happen here is you would put the grapes right in here, in the wine fat, wine press, and then these are the grapes, and they would stomp on them, and stomp and stomp and stomp and stomp. And as you're doing that, and you're crushing the grapes, the blood of the grapes is now flowing into another part, and then it can be scooped up, made into wine, and so on and so forth. So that is the presses, right? And as it says, it shall burst out with new wine, which is another way of saying you're going to have an increase in grapes from your vine, your vineyard, which is a blessing from the Lord. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord Yahweh, neither be weary of his correction. Why? Because it is for your betterment, right? If you're doing something wrong and the Lord brings, some form of difficulty upon you to correct you, don't despise that, because it's better than for you to be left in your ignorant wickedness and then be destroyed. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth, right? And when you're a child, you might not understand that. You might be upset when you're under punishment for doing something wrong, but it's really for your betterment, because it's training you so that when you get older, those correct practices and that discipline sticks with you, and it keeps you out of even worse danger. See, as a child, you might get grounded, you might get an ass whooping, but as an adult, you might end up in jail, right? You might end up dead. You might end up in a much worse situation if your bad tendencies are not checked. So don't despise the correction of the Lord, because it is out of love. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it, that is, the merchandise of wisdom, is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. So, people are happy if they find silver or gold. They work hard, they spend money, and they buy silver and gold, right? But the merchandise or the gain that you get from wisdom is far greater than gold or silver, because gold and silver is limited to what it can do in terms of, what you can purchase, but there are certain things you can't buy. Right? You can't buy righteousness. You can't buy a life. You can buy goods, you can buy materialistic things, but the cost for the heavenly things are not with our earthly material. She is more precious than rubies, and all things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. See, that's how precious wisdom is, that nothing that you can desire here is comparable unto wisdom. And some people might not understand this, but in order to even understand this is a form of wisdom in itself, to understand the true value of wisdom. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. So these are the benefits that come with wisdom, right? Length of days, meaning living a long life, is in her right hand, right? It's when you have wisdom and you apply wisdom, you prolong your life, and it can bring to you riches and honor. Look at King Solomon. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold on her, and happy is everyone that retaineth her. Okay, and that's basically the benefit of wisdom. Now, being a tree of life, it's like the fruit of her is refreshing, right? It's like it's like life-giving. Okay, and this is based on the way that wisdom improves your life. Like when you look at how you were living back in the world versus having your eyes open now, we live a more calm and peaceful life now. And really, there are things in your life that you don't stress about because you now have a better understanding of how they work, but also knowledge of the Heavenly Father, knowledge of Yahweh Shai, knowledge of why everything is going on the way it is. And it allows you to apply wisdom on a different level that keeps you safe, that keeps you preserved, that maintains your mental peace. And really helps you maneuver in this world of stress. So we're not as stressed as people in this world. You got people that look at prophecy and they lose their minds because they're afraid, but we're not, right? We have that. What's that in Isaiah 26:3? That will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. It says here, she is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retaineth her, right? Everyone that's able to keep and hold on to her. The Lord Yahweh by wisdom hath founded the earth, and by understanding hath he established the heavens. When you look at the earth and the things in it, how, homeostasis, for example, right? The food chain, for example, how everything works together in harmony. This is all set up through wisdom. How different elements interact with each other, to create different forms of matter. You have, some animals that when you go look into the animal kingdom, you have some creatures who, like a bird, right, whose food is the remains or the, bacteria or whatever is inside the mouth of like a hippopotamus or something. So while the hippo opens his mouth to get a cleaning, the bird comes to get food. And you see how they all work together, to keep the balance or the cycle of life going. This is all through wisdom. the sun and the moon, right? How the sun moves, how it operates, the things that it gives us, the benefits of it, the stars, the moon, all of these things are set through wisdom, right? The ability to tell time, the ability to, read the stars, the constellations. The Lord established all that, and it wasn't at random. Verse 20, by his knowledge, the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down dew. And the depths being broken up is the seas, right, being divided. And the clouds, as it says, they drop down dew, which is needful for the earth, the plants. Let's read this in the NLT. It says, by his knowledge, the deep fountains of the earth burst forth, and the dew settles beneath the night sky. And that's why you wake up in the morning and the plants are already moist and wet, which preserves them. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace to thy neck. See? And that's why you see a lot of people that are without wisdom, they end up, living or falling into calamity, right? Because it's they're forsaken life. But to those that have wisdom, as it says, it'll be life unto your soul and grace to thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. Right? So you're going to be established through wisdom. Like the scriptures say, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. You're going to know how to avoid certain situations. Okay, you're going to know how to maneuver out of certain situations that keep you, safe. It keeps you out of trouble. But it also helps you, remain firm and be established. And whatever you put your hands to, you're able to succeed at it through wisdom that comes from the Lord. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet, because you're not going to be stressed. Okay, you know that the Lord is with you, and you're not, when you live a life without wisdom and folly, you get into trouble, you piss off the wrong people, you're in debt. Right? It's like just, evil after evil after evil that you rack up on yourself because of not applying wisdom. And so when you sleep, you barely get any good sleep because you're stressed. But it's not so with one that has wisdom. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord Yahweh shall be thy confidence. So when sudden fear or the judgment that comes upon the wicked, comes, don't be afraid. Why? Because the Lord is going to be your confidence and shall keep thy foot from being taken, meaning that he's going to keep you safe. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. So if you have the means or the power to do good, don't sit on it or hold or withhold it from those that are deserving of it. Say not unto thy neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, and I will give, when thou hast it by thee. See, you can help out your brother, and you have the means to right now, but you tell him, oh, no, you come back another time. That's like you deliberately holding out help from somebody that needs it. Now imagine if you needed help and somebody had the means and they're telling you, oh, no, I'm good, I'm broke. But they got 3, 4, 5 gold bars in their pocket, and you don't, that's not pleasing to the Lord. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. Let's take a look. And the securely meaning like he's not, well, let me read it here in the NLT. It says, don't plot harm against your neighbor, for those who live nearby trust you. Okay, so don't, here it is, you start plotting on your neighbor, and all of a sudden, unexpectedly, you bring evil upon them that have not made themselves enemies of you. The Lord is going to judge you for that. Strive not with a man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. See? And you got people that are like that. They literally just go and just try to start something with somebody that literally has done no wrong to them. The Lord hates that. And people who do that, they suffer the rightful judgment that is set for them. Because you're disquieting somebody, especially one that has not made themselves an enemy of you. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. And right now, who is our oppressor? Esau, Edom, right? And I mean, you have you've had different oppressors throughout time, but envy not the oppressor, because in the Psalms it tells you, right, that they're not in trouble as other men. And you may see, okay, why is it that they seem to be prosperous? Why is it that they have this and have that, and we're at the bottom and so on? But don't envy them, because their fate is going to be utter destruction. And the means by which they got that prosperity, if you found that out, you wouldn't even look at it as prosperity, honestly. Like even lately with the release of these Epstein files, when you see the things that they do, and the rituals that they partake in, you'll understand why all the more you should not envy them and choose none of his ways, because they're perverse and they lead you astray from the Lord. See, Satan gives gifts too. The only problem is the means in which you get those gifts is wicked. And you can get those gifts and greater from the Lord through righteousness. For the froward is abomination to the Lord. One that is froward is perverse, and they're an abomination to the Lord because they don't follow his ways. But his secret is with the righteous. And we're going back to Amos 3 and 7, right? The Lord reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets, which are likened unto his righteous, and they then go and reveal that unto the rest that can hear it. The curse of the Lord Yahweh is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just, which is that balance, right? The wicked get judgment from the Lord, the righteous get blessings. Surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. So it may seem, temporarily, these scorners that they're having, like they have the upper hand or nothing is happening to them, but it's really just a matter of time. And eventually the Lord is going to return unto them and repay them and recompense unto them what they have done to us or to the lowly. And in the reverse, the Lord is going to give grace to the lowly, because the lowly seek after him, right? The lowly are the ones that, regardless of, whatever they may be going through, they've still put their trust in the Lord. And he's going to be gracious to them in due time. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. And inheriting glory, that's through the wisdom of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, right? It leads you on to righteousness, and through that righteousness, the inheritance of glory. But shame is going to be the promotion of fools, right? Imagine being promoted, but onto shame, all right, which is going to be, the shame comes as a result of their demise, right, or their calamity, and that brings forth that shame. So that's going to be their reward, the reward of fools. And that brings us to the end of the book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.